Okie dokie. Let's see if I can figure this out real quick. Alright, so this video is pretty much going to be centered around the idea of learning some fundamental and foundational skills for Algebra 2, mostly all Algebra 1 stuff. So, I'm going to start off, we're going to get to the point where we can answer all 5 of these questions. So explain how to determine the slope of a line. Not just that it's rise or run, not that it's the coefficient of the x value in an equation that looks like y equals mx plus b, but how to actually find it. What is an x-intercept? Give 2 different ways that you can determine an x-intercept. What is a y-intercept? Give 2 different ways you can determine a y-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and answer all of that here in just a second. Let's just start off with number 6. Alright, so that first question was explain how to determine the slope of a line. Well, you can look at this all you want, but it's not going to help you determine the slope of a line. You need to first get it in the y equals mx plus b format, or you need to solve for y before you can answer that question. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to bring it down here. So I got 2x plus 4y equals 12. So I've got 2x plus 4y equals 12. Now the way I explain this to people normally is there's an order in which you do things. There's an order in which you put your shoes on. You put your socks on first, then you put your shoes on second. There's an order in which you take them off, and it's the reverse order. You take your shoes off, then you take your socks off. Okay? So there's an order that we follow in math called the order of operations. It's PEMDAS. Alright, parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction. When you're trying to find the value of something, this is the order that you follow. When you are trying to solve for y, you go in the reverse order. So the first question with this is there anything that's being added or subtracted to the 4y? So 4 is being multiplied by y. We'll get there eventually. Multiply is to come. We're focused on adding and subtracting. What's being added or subtracted to that 4y? 2x is being added to 4y. Okay? And it's a positive 2x. So in order to get rid of that 2x, I'm going to subtract it from both sides. So now I've got 4y equals negative 2x plus 12. Alright? So now, is there anything being added or subtracted to the 4y? No, nothing is left that's being added or subtracted. So we're done with that. Now on to division and multiplication. Is there anything being multiplied or divided by that 4y? 4 is being multiplied by the y, so in order to get rid of something that's being multiplied, you do the opposite. So you divide. I'm going to divide by 4. And when I divide by 4 over here, I divide each term on this side by 4 also. So I'm going to have y equals negative 2 divided by 4 is going to be reduced negative 1/2 x plus 12 divided by 4 is going to be 3. Okay, so now we've got it in our form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope, right? The slope is always the coefficient of the x, and 3 is the y-intercept. So I'm going to answer these questions up here. What's the slope of that equation? Slope is negative 1/2. And you might ask yourself, all right, when I find out the slope, which I know it's rise over run, but does that negative go up on the top or does it go on the bottom? It doesn't really matter, and I'll show you what I mean here in a second. So here's my y-intercept. Let's start with that. So my y-intercept is at 0, 3. Okay, that's where it starts. That's my starting point. So I'm going to start right there at 0, 3. Now let's say we put the negative on the top. I'm going to show you that it doesn't matter because negative 1 divided by 2 is negative 0.5. Also, 1 divided by negative 2 is still negative 0.5, so it doesn't matter. Just make sure the negative goes up top or on bottom, not both. So say we put it on top. That means I'm going to go down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2 for my slope. Down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2, down 1, right 2. Okay, so there is a display of what it looks like to have the negative on top. What if I put the negative on bottom? That means I go up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2. up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2, up 1, left 2. Notice it's the exact same line. It doesn't really matter if I put the negative on top or bottom, as long as it's one or the other, not both. So there's my line. All right? So there's my y-intercept. It's at 3. My x-intercept looks like it's at 6. Okay, my slope is negative 1/2. X-intercept is where the line hits the x-axis. Y-intercept is where the line hits the y-axis. Now, if you really wanted to get specific, and I think this is super valuable to understand, how else could I find the x-intercept or the y-intercept without using the graph? Well, let me explain it this way. The y-intercept has to be on the y-axis. So what's the value of x anywhere on the y-axis? Anywhere on the y-axis, the value of x is 0. Okay? So if I look at my equation and I plug 0 in for x, right here, really I'm going to end up having 2 times 0, there's 0 in for x, plus 4y equals 12. Well, 2 times 0 is 0. So really, that's gone. There's no point in having that. I've got 4y equals 12, so I need to divide by 4 on each side to solve for y. And when I do that, I'm going to find out y equals 3 when x equals 0. And sure enough, that's what I have for my y-intercepts. So when I plug 0 in for x, I find my y-intercepts. And then the other way around, if I want to look for my x-intercepts, anywhere this thing crosses the x-axis, y is going to be 0. So if I take 0 and I plug it in for y, my x should equal 6 if I solve for it. So let's go ahead and try it. 0 plugged in for y. So I'm going to write that over here. So I've got a new equation going on. 2x plus 4 times, here's 0 plugged in for y, equals 12. So I just rewrote this, except I plugged 0 in for y. I've got 2x plus 4 times 0 is 0. Don't need it anymore. So I've got 2x equals 12. Divide by 2 on each side, so I've got x equals 6. Sure enough, that's my x-intercept. So, 2 ways of finding an x-intercept. To answer this up here. Well, let's answer some of these questions. Yeah, let's start with 1. Explain how to determine the slope of a line. So, maybe something like this. Having solved for y, so we got it first in y equals mx plus b form. Having solved for y and combined like terms, the slope is found. I'm not going to write this. Put some ellipses there. But the slope is found by looking at the fractional coefficient of x. All right? So the fractional coefficient of x. What I mean by that is when we solve this all out, here's x, here's my coefficient. It happened to be a fraction. So that's a fractional coefficient of x. I've got a negative 1 over 2. Okay. What is an x-intercept? Well, while you could say it's where the line crosses the x-axis, I'd more specifically say it's anywhere on the function that y equals 0. So anywhere, or let's say the value of x, the value of x when y equals 0. That's an x-intercept, okay? I like this definition more than just when it crosses the x-axis because it works algebraically and graphically. Okay, give 2 different ways you can determine the x-intercepts. So we just talked about that. Graphically. So to show you what I mean by that, look at the graph. There's the x-intercept. It's at 6. Or algebraically. Let me show you what I mean by that. That's what we just did right here. Algebraically, we plugged 0 in for y, and using algebra, we solved for x. We found that x equaled 6. So just like the graph said that the x-intercept was 6, so did our algebraic method. Okay? The same goes for what is a y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is the value of y when x equals 0. So I'll just say that exactly. The value of y when x is 0. Give two different ways you can determine a y-intercept. Same idea, graphically and algebraically. Graphically and algebraically. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do one more of these a little bit quicker. Let's do number 8. So I'm going to start off by subtracting, well, let's rewrite it, give myself some space here. So I've got x plus 1/2 y equals 1. X plus 1/2 y equals 1. Let's do it like this. X plus y over 2 equals 1. All I did here was, instead of writing the fraction out in front, I took this variable and I put it up on top. I like looking at fractions like that because it makes it easier to see for me. So 1 times y is 1y, and that's what you see on the top right here. And then it's still over 2. So if I'm going to solve this, I'm going to start off by subtracting x from each side, so minus x, so I have y over 2 equals negative x plus 1. And then, this is why I put it on top, because a lot of people have an easier time understanding what they need to do with this versus what they need to do with a fraction. Because all this is, if I were to say that out loud, I would say y divided by 2. What's the opposite of divided by 2? Multiply. So I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. Multiply everything by 2, so I'm going to end up having y equals negative 2x plus 2. Notice I just multiplied negative x by 2 and 1 by 2. And I multiplied y divided by 2 by 2. Okay, so there's my equation solved for y. My slope is going to be negative 2 over 1. My y-intercept is going to be 2. My x-intercepts I can find by plugging 0 in for y. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use this top equation again. I think it's easier to use. You can use any one of these equations. You can use this one. You can use this one, this one, this one, as long as you didn't make a mistake. Any one of them. I'm going to use this one because it's the easiest, I think, when plugging 0 in for y. If I plug 0 in for y, it's going to be 1/2 times 0, which means that that is not there anymore. So I've got x equals 1. So my x-intercept should be at 1, 0. Let's see if I'm right when I graph this thing. So I'm going to start off at positive 2 for my y-intercept, graphing. I'm going to go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. So down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. Same thing as going up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1. Notice it's the same line. Okay. So there is my line, and sure enough, my x-intercept was at 1, 0, just like we found out algebraically up here. My y-intercept was at 0, 2, right there. Okay, so there's the basics of graphing. That's how you find the y-intercept, the x-intercepts, how you determine the slope. Remember, you have to put it in y equals form to determine the slope. Two different ways that you could find the intercepts is algebraically by plugging zeros into this equation, or graphically by just graphing it and seeing where it crosses the y-axis or the x-axis. Now I'm going to do some quick solving for y, and then that should do it. I think that'll be the end of this video. I'm going to do a lot of them really quick, so we just kind of get the concept. But again, it's PEMDAS in the opposite order. Okay, so it's, let me write it real quick. So PEMDAS, but backwards. So I'm starting with anything being added or subtracted. Once I'm done with that, anything multiplied or divided. After that, go to exponents. After that, whatever's left over in parentheses. Okay? So, Here's 2y. Is anything being added or subtracted to 2y? The 4x's. So I'm going to get rid of that first. Minus 4x from both sides. I do not subtract 4x from 16. They're two totally separate things. So I just leave them separate. Okay, now I'm done with anything being added or subtracted to the y. Now I'm on to things that are being multiplied or divided by the y. So I have a 2 being multiplied by the y. To get rid of it, I got to do the opposite. So I'm going to divide. Divide, divide. So I've got y equals negative 2x plus 8. There's my final answer. All right, on to number 6. Let's do number 6. I've got 25x minus 0.5y equals 3. First thing I'm going to do is anything being added or subtracted to the y. That 25x's, okay? It kind of looks interesting, but let me show you something. If I did y plus 25x, that's much easier to see it that way. I didn't change the value of this whole equation. It's the same exact equation, just written a different way. I switched the way around. So now you can definitely see 25 is being added to the y's, the negative 0.5 y's. There's 25x being added to it. So I'm going to get rid of that first. So subtract 25x from both sides. So I'm going to be left on this side with a negative 0.5y. Those are going to cancel out. And then I've got a equals to negative 25x plus 3. Last thing, what is that negative 0.5 doing to the y? It's multiplying by the y. So I need to get rid of it by dividing. Again, I would say this by saying negative 0.5 times y. I'm going to get rid of that by dividing it. So divide everything by negative 0.5. Divide by negative 0.5. Divide by negative 0.5. Okay? So when you do that, you're going to be left with a positive y, which is our goal. We're solving for a y. And then when I divide negative 25 by negative 0.5, it ends up being positive 50. When I divide positive 3 divided by negative 0.5, it's going to be a negative 6. And there's my final answer. So I have a y-intercept of negative 6 and a slope of 50 over 1. And I'll do number 5, 8, and 11. Straight down the middle really quick, and then I'll be done. So, not explaining much, I'm just going to work these 3 back to back. So, 4x, going to get rid of that. Minus 4x minus 4x, so I've got negative 6y. Let me go ahead and separate. Equals negative 4x plus 18. Divide by negative 6. So I've got y equals 2/3 x minus 3. There's that one. So I'm going to start off by getting rid of that 6x that's being added to there. So I've got minus 6x minus 6x. What's left is 2y equals negative 6x minus 8. Going to divide by 2. Divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So now I've got y equals negative 3x minus 4. Okay, last one. 6x minus y. So I've got a negative y, but it's having a 6x added to it, so I'm going to get rid of that. Minus 6x minus 6x. So I've got negative y equals negative 6x plus 10. Then I'm going to divide. So when I ask students this, I say, how many y's do you see there? There's one y there. There's negative 1 y there. So really you've got negative 1 times y. That's what's going on there. So if I want to get rid of that negative 1 coefficient, I divide it by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. Divide by negative 1. What's going to happen when you do that is all the signs are going to switch. So you got y equals negative 6 divided by negative 1 is 6. Positive 10 divided by negative 1 is negative 10. Okay, so there's the 3 problems. 3 more problems. All right, let's see. I think that is all I'm going to do on this video. Let me look at some stuff. Ooh, wait, one more thing. This will be a good one to cover. in case you don't understand how to graph lines that are just y equals this number or x equals this number, they're the simplest things in the world, really. So y equals -5. Where does y equal -5? Most people can give me this point right here. Okay, then I'd ask, where else does y equal -5? And that's where people kind of get confused. Well, right here, y equals -5. X might equal 3, but y still equals -5. Right here, y equals -5. X might equal 7, but y still equals -5. Or maybe x might equal -1, but y still equals -5. And as you keep putting dots on where y equals -5, you find out pretty quickly where your line is. It goes just straight all the way across the bottom. So y equals -5 looks like this. I would not recommend you memorizing that all y equals some number equations have lines that are just horizontal. Just truly realize and use logic. Where does y equal -5? Anywhere along this line. That's how you know it's horizontal. Okay? X equals 2, which tells me, where does x equal 2? Right here. But not only there, anywhere along this line. X equals +2. Okay? If I could draw a straight line, that'd be great. But anyway, I hope this is helpful. Make sure you understand just these fundamental things that you should have learned back in Algebra 1 before going into Algebra 2. All right? I will see you guys in class.